Welcome back to How to Tickle Yourself. I'm your host, Duff McDonald, along with my co-host, Joey of Rockledge.
Hello.
We got a special one for you today, folks. About a year ago, I started hounding my old friend, filmmaker and documentarian Andy Keene, to sit for an interview with us. But he demurred, telling me that he didn't want to do so until he had something important to talk about. I thought that was nonsense, of course. Andy's won 2 Junos, Canada's equivalent of the Grammys, for his documentaries about the tragically hip and Sarah Harmer. So as far as I'm concerned, he always has something to talk about. He's a very interesting man. But we agreed to hold tight until the time was right. Well, the time is right. Andy is currently at work on a timely documentary series of monumental importance. It's called Back to the Fire, in search of lost values that could change our world. And he's making it with our other guest today, Chief Gibby Jacob, the leader of Canada's Squamish Nation for the last 30 years. I'll let these two describe what they're working on themselves, but suffice it to say that their mission is something that we share here at How to Tickle Yourself. They're trying to help us get back to first principles, to those things that matter more than all the other things. So let's talk with them, shall we? Welcome to the show, gents. Great to have you.
Thank you, Duff, and pleasure to meet you and Joey. This is a first for me. I've never done a podcast before, so.
And it's a first for us. It's our first 4-way interview, so we're breaking records left and right here. And Andy, welcome to the show. Thanks for finally agreeing to do this.
Great to see you, Duff. Great to see you, Joey. And thanks so much. I'm so happy that Gibby was able to join me today, and we're going to have a great chat.
At the present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion, right here, right now. Right here, right now. Whoa, right here, right now.
All right, so why don't we start at the beginning? Chief Gibby, who are you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you and Andy came to get connected?
I'm one of the hereditary chiefs of the Squamish Nation, and been so since my wife's yelling. Since was it 2009? I've been hereditary chief. My late sister was the first woman chief in my tribe, ordained by our late father. I have 2 older brothers, and he decided that he wanted our sister to be the first or the chief following him. So he brought his sons together and he told us, and we said, "That's fine, Dad. It's yours to give to whoever you want." And we all love our sister, loved our late sister anyway. So, and she was just a great intelligent lady. So, good to follow somebody like that. And I worked for my community for close to 40 years. I started at the very bottom of our organization. I actually had a dirt floor for my office. So I was in touch with Mother Earth, and it got pretty wet sometimes. It was fine. It was fine. I knew who I was there working for, my people, and I loved every minute of it. And I started at, as you can guess, the very bottom of supervisory positions, and ended up making my way over pretty close to 30 years to the top, and making different departments a stop along the way. And I was a counselor for 32 years, elected chief and counselor for 32 years, and really enjoyed that. It was doing battle with everybody outside of our community, and creating relationships with those outside of our community. Huge task, and just enjoyed that mind bender, if you will, for the number of years I did it. And I guess probably my biggest claim to fame is being part of the 2010 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games. I was on the bid committee, which means putting together the package to go to Lausanne and IOC for their review and adjudication on who was going to get the games. And I did that for a number of years. And in 2003, we being Vancouver Whistler, won the games. And I was appointed by our neighboring tribe, the Lilwat Nation, and my nation, the Squamish Nation, to sit on the organizing committee. I was the first Indigenous person to sit at that level, and I made them pay. And my late chief, who was there before me doing my job, the job that I was doing, he told us about this and about potentially being a part of the Olympics, and we all just kind of chuckled, yeah, right, and because it never happened before. And he says, well, if we get involved, we're not going to be beads and trinkets. And so that was basically my marching order, because he passed on, unfortunately, at a young age. And I got moved into his position, kind of following him up the chain. So I'm very happy to do that and participate, and got the first speaking part at the transfer of the flag, which went from Italy touring to Vancouver. And so I had the first speaking part ever, and then I was so ill. I got a virus the day we landed over there, and I tell you, I was so sick. I just wanted to lay down and sleep. But I had to go. I had to be there, and the show must go on, as they say. And I was the only one who knew the parts. I had to drag my butt out of bed and go do it. And I've done a lot of other things. Andy's seen some of the stuff we've done here. We've got billions of dollars worth of land. We're now embarking upon, billions of dollars of real estate development. Not only my nation, but our neighboring nation. We've created a partnership between us, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and they're forging ahead on some of the biggest projects in Vancouver on some of the most expensive pieces of dirt. I would say would rival Manhattan downtown. It's and just on my reserve, it's a small section of what we have left, 10.6 acres. Over 6,000 units of rental will be put on that land, and it's open to whoever, and all the people who will rent there will be afforded the same rules and regulations that the province makes everybody operate under in this province. So it's a good thing,
So with all that going on, how do you have time to work with a gringo like Andy Keene?
Well, I'm retired, actually. I just know that stuff.
That's a busy retirement.
I'm bringing you out of retirement.
Yeah.
Tell us, guys. Tell us about Back to the Fire. It's a documentary series, 6 parts in development. It looks fascinating and also very sort of like a crucial project for our time. How did it come to be?
Well, I can speak to that off the top. We were introduced by a mutual friend over COVID, so during lockdown, it's not just because we're talking to you guys, but there was very much a sense of once I'd heard and met Chief, I'd heard about his concerns for his people. And the future leaders having a lack of understanding of where they came from. It turned a light on for me, and it made me realize how little I knew. And I was ready to learn and meet some of these incredible people that had been mentioned. So I'll let Chief describe the nut of the show, but really that was our coming together. And then I think what I was able to bring to his idea was perhaps a way to tell it on the screen, because he wanted something that would live on, and he wanted to use modern tools to do it.
Can you hold on? Somebody's knocking at my door.
Yeah, no problem. You hit mute. And I can carry on. Are you all right?
Yeah, no, I just yelled at somebody to answer the door. There's 3 other people here.
So maybe Chief, maybe just your reason, your concerns, and why you felt like this had to be done.
I don't know who the hell's at my door. They're coming in. Hold on.
So what was articulated to me right off the top when I met with Gibby was he was seeing all these. He was seeing his mentors, his teachers pass on around him. There were these leaders in his community who carried this knowledge, and it ended up they took it with them as they passed. And he said he thought that was completely unfair, and he saw a future where that knowledge would be lost.
Yeah. I heard you.
Okay, good.
So
both my wife and I are elders, and it's the first time we've taken advantage of house cleaning program, and so we're not used to this. I'm used to being the bottle washer and everything. Chief's got to do everything. Got to keep yourself humble, right? Well, going back, my late father was obviously chief before my late sister, and when I was a young kid, maybe 12, 13, something like that, I'd go fishing with him up about 50 miles out of Vancouver to a river called the Squamish River. And, I really enjoyed that time with my late father. He had a massive stroke, just about died. And, he came back, and, I'm just glad to spend my time as the youngest of 9 children with my late father. And so we'd fish all day, and, over the evening, we'd clean all the salmon and put a rope through their gills and through their mouth and put them back in the water so that they'd stay cold. And pretty glacier fed river, so the water's pretty cold. If you fall in, you're gonna freeze. But anyway, so in the evening time, we'd cook up a salmon for dinner, and then we'd throw a couple of spuds in the fire, and whatever else we had to eat. And when that was all done, cleaned all the dishes and everything, that my daddy would sit me around the fire that we'd built, and he'd tell me a lot of the things that his grandfather taught him. His grandfather raised my dad, and back in the day, it was one of the ways our people raised our families, is that the grandfather took the oldest son of the oldest son and took him to raise him. So that pretty much, whatever my grandfather would have missed in his time with his dad, my dad was getting the same teachings. So there was a continuity, and that was how our people taught, the things that were important. My dad, every morning, he'd have to get up, go down the river, have a shokum, we call him, a bath, every morning. If the river was frozen, he'd have to bring something down there to break a hole in the ice to get in. He used cedar boughs for no soap. They just used cedar boughs to brush your skin off. My mom said, "That's why your dad had such soft skin." That's more than I need to know, Mom. But so anyways, so that's how our people, transferred traditional teachings. And my dad and all the guys his age, my dad would have been over 110 now. And all of those guys his age, all got scooped up and sent to a residential school. I think you call them industrial schools down in the U.S., where they send all the native kids. So, so when they did that, they basically broke the circle, of how we taught our people, because it would be more than just my dad at his grandfather's longhouse. There'd be other young men from other families who'd come and stay with him. And, he had a 400-foot longhouse. And that's a big one in comparison to anything else that was in our nation at the time. He was a big chief and looked after, more than just his family. He looked after a lot of different people. And so, my dad, after his bath, he'd have to go back to the longhouse, dry up, warm up. He'd have some breakfast, and then his grandfather would sit him around the fire and start giving him teachings. And so when the circle was broken, it's still compounding itself today. A lot of our people don't know anything about who they are or where they come from. And my cousin, who's 86, he always says that our people don't know anything about who we are. We ended up with 2,000 people coming back to be Squamish in the 80s and under Bill C-31. And those people were all, born and bred off reserve. So, they didn't get any teachings at all, So anyways, so the circle being broken, and all the friends that I've gained over the last 40 political years that I worked for the nation, I get phone-itis. So I start phoning my friends, and it doesn't matter if we're back east in Ontario, Winnipeg, you name it. I phone them and see how they're doing. Number one, see if they're still alive. And number one, we're all getting older now. And chit chat, and I always end up talking about politics because we're all a bunch of old politicos. And how's your tribe doing? Those bloody young people, they think they know everything. They don't know where the hell they come from. They don't know the history of our people. Don't know how hard it was to get where we're at today. They don't know a lot, even though they're university educated. You can't buy this stuff. You can't.
So do you find
in the book?
Do the young people, do you find that they want to come back and they want to learn and they want, I would think if it was available to me, I would be there with bells on. Like it's in them. It's part of them. So do you see that?
Well, there's some young folks, who are doing that. And, we've got several going to Simon Fraser University now. We've got a Squamish Nation or Squamish language course there. So I think there's a great number of young people going in for that. I have a nephew, he's 56, and he's got his PhD in linguistics. He got it went to school at Eugene, Oregon, and he finished his course here at SFU, Simon Fraser University. So he was the first PhD in my family, and then I had a late niece who got her PhD in education. So, we're pretty accomplished family, and very happy for the young people. So there are young people. I generalize when I say the young people. I don't mean each and every one of them, because there's some who are way smarter than me.
All right, so take us to the series itself. What are you guys doing in each episode? What's the ambition of it?
Yeah, I would. So it came together over a while, but where we've ended up, and we there are just so many stories, as you can imagine, right? So we were introduced. I was introduced to all these prominent leaders in British Columbia to start. At first, if we thought it was going to be a one-off documentary, we thought, no, this is going to be. There's not enough time. People aren't going to get their due. These stories are beautiful. How can we design this where we can actually hear from each of them. And so that's where we've ended up. The series will really feature one elder leader, and then with a next gen leader of that same tribe, out on their ancestral lands, so there's a bit of a travel component to the show. British Columbia isn't light on beauty, so wherever we seem to go is just a stunner, right? We've made it very much a travel show, and we're going to continue to do that outside of BC. But we go into their territory, they call it, and we go back to a meaningful place with them, likely their birthplace or a place where their family have been educated or have spent a lot of time. And that's where we get around the fire and we learn. You see, we learn ceremony, we learn language, food, and really buried in all of that and ingrained in these people are these values and these teachings that come by them very naturally, but to this next generation that Gibby's referring to, they've missed out on for different reasons. So that's how it's designed. And you know what we're really focused on, I mean, in this country, in Canada, there's this big word reconciliation, and people are trying to understand what the heck it means. There's a lot of people who have made great efforts to try to explain what it means. But we really feel like we want to tell a show that's inspiring. We want to make a show that's inspiring and educational rather than focused on the darkness of these lives, right? Everyone's life has trauma in it, and that's part of this arc and every one of these shows. But we want these to be inspirational success stories.
Right. Well, you focus on expand, right? So we all want more joy, more love, more knowledge, more learning. Yeah. That's awesome.
And to me, right? Sorry, quick question, Gibby. Like, to me, reconciliation, from my understanding in yoga, is unity, right? It's the unity of all things, and it sounds like you're aiming for that too, right?
Very much so.
That's what
I think it's somewhere in that direction. You know, I don't think anybody's pinpointed it to what it means. I think to each individual, I think it's a journey, right? And it's a journey that's going to take some people a lifetime before they get it, and others, you know, who say, "Well, geez, you know, I got resources. I'd like to put it forward to support First Nations endeavors." You know, there's a young chief from the island who wanted to do a building that would encompass 100% his people's language, elders, wow. 10 elders and 10 youth. And some philanthropist family over there, they decided, we want to do this building. So they built the thing. Wow. And they're funding it somewhat. And it's probably a few $1 million, you know, having to put a float in there. And so, you know, like, there's no one thing that is going to be the it for everybody. You know, I don't have $1 million to throw at anything. So, and probably neither does anybody here. So, but the thing is,
anybody? No.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah, it means different things to different people. And Chief Bobby Joe, who is our first, my first friend. That you know, he's just been such a great man, and the struggle to move the needle forward, reconciliation, and he's globally known. And I'm so glad he's been a friend of mine for an awful long time, because I've always admired him. You know, always admired him. And he's 82 now, and he can still dance up a storm, Indian dance. And sing, and knows her language. He's written a book, Namoyut, a book called Namoyut. And I don't know if they sell it down U.S. or not, but be a book worthwhile you're having a look at. And,
how do we spell that?
NAMYUT, Namoyut.
Okay. And what does that mean? Namoyut? Oh.
Yeah, it's
That's
amazing.
beautiful.
There's more of them coming out. There's people willing to tell their story now that it all came out in the past. People who are willing to share what happened to them in their life, the dark past, and those things are out there now. I can't read them because it just breaks my heart. And but we're trying to get beyond that. The teaching saved people's lives. The traditional teachings saved people's lives and allowed them to come back, to some of them to be great, great, great leaders in this country called Canada, and in their own communities. And sometimes it's a funny place to be a politician in Indian country, because the more you do, less people like you for some reason. Not everywhere, but just the way it is.
You guys are also like, you obviously have no shortage of Canadian stories, but you're also looking to make this an international thing too, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think as we started moving it along and realized that the message in it, or really that the concerns at the root of it, were much bigger than just, of course, British Columbia. Yeah, I think that, and it's in part for the interest of a broadcaster also. It's definitely something that will cross borders. I mean, there are Indigenous cultures all over the world, and there are leaders in those communities who have similar concerns. We have not connected with too many. There's definitely a couple of American stories that are on the table. But yeah, really excited to see if we can do that.
I think the world needs this right now, right? I think people are hungry for this sort of knowledge. Like, I read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and that book changed me. It changed my relationship with food, the way I look at the earth. She talks about how a lot of the Indigenous cultures are built on a platform of gratitude. So they're approaching life from a place of, I'm grateful for everything, right? Versus our modern society where it's kind of built on a platform of commodity, where everything's earned. And the way you approach your life is so different. And she was talking about her native language, how she was learning that because it was being lost. And there were a couple of things that really hit me. One, she talked about the word for berry being a gift, that it's similar to the word for gift. And that, so now every time I see a berry growing in our yard, I'm like, oh, it's a gift from the earth. And so it's changed like my very basic relationship with food. And it was like so perfectly timed for me. And I think the world needs that. Like, how do we build the bridge between the platform of gratitude and the platform of commodity or earning? And it seems like that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's really
bravo.
nice, actually. In fact, there is a scene in the pilot episode. Chief Robert Joseph is remembering a childhood moment where his grandmother would take him out in the canoe in this very remote island off the northeast coast of Vancouver Island, where he grew up. And he said they used to go along the coast and they used to pick the berries, but she said, don't pick all of them. And then she said, and she said, but as they came into the boat, she said there'd be a moment and he'd look at her and she'd be looking up and she'd be thanking someone. And he said, this is where I first learned gratitude.
Yeah. Duff and I were foraging for mushrooms a couple of days ago. And I reminded him, I was like, don't pick all of them. Right. He's like, you don't have to tell me that every time.
No, it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It is.
Right? It's a different connection.
Life-changing. It is. It was life-changing for me. Like, it was a big, big deal. So it's I love what you're doing. I'm excited. When is it out? When can we watch it?
Well, so we're definitely in hustle mode, but we've got a pilot episode that's nearing completion, and we're hoping to resume production at the end of sort of in the fall. But yeah, I guess targeting for next year, the end of next year, having the season complete.
And Chief Gibby, you are on camera in this. You're the host of the first one, or the host of all of them?
A couple, yeah, the first couple, yeah. And that is, yeah. So that's been great. I mean, he looks, as you can tell, he looks good on camera.
The camera loves him, right?
Yeah.
Smart camera. And this is a first for me in being involved in anything like this, and I've been really leaning on Andy quite heavily. And I think I was joking in the beginning. Andy and I being together for over 2 years now, working on this thing. When he started, he was white. Now he's pink. So he's moving to the red specter soon.
I mean, I look at myself and I am rather pink.
I'm in the pink category too, I think.
It's interesting, Andy. You said at the beginning, you're talking about your own learning. Something happened to me in 2020, right before I wrote Tickled. I had a kind of revelation in the quiet of quarantine where I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything. All this stuff that I think I know, right? That we walk around, each of us sort of with a pride of whatever our knowledge is, right? It suddenly hit me that the ratio of things I don't know to the things that I do know was practically infinite. And it opened me up to a more learning mode or stance than I'd been in for years. And it's a much better place to be, right? To be curious again, and to be sort of having be receptive to wisdom that Chief Gibby keeps telling us how old he is. Nobody here's a spring chicken, right? We're all four of us are past the half century mark. And it's like, but it's like I'm in a place now where I feel like I can hear more than I could 5 years ago. I'm not sure why, but are you experiencing a similar thing when does that happen when you make a documentary like this? You go through a similar thing?
Yeah, it does for sure. And I just think, I mean, with a lot of different projects, you kind of don't know how much it's going to open you up, right? But this one is definitely unique in that it's something it was almost you pretended you knew something because you were supposed to know something, right? But then when you're with some of these leaders and visiting some of these communities, it's nothing that you can kind of package in a sentence or two, right? There's a feeling, there's a spirit, and our goal is to capture a bit of that on camera. And it's so much about the land. Also, everyone's story is so much rooted in their land. And I think with every project I've done, there's been a connection that way. So perhaps there's some type of natural step into this, but no, it's been a huge education.
I think for me, all comes down to spirituality. If you're not spiritual, then a lot of things will fly over your head that you won't see because you're not looking for them. And you just starting to look for them now. You look like you're about 54. You're young, but for me, I've seen things, I've witnessed things that transcend any reality that I was ever faced with before, and it all comes down to having an open mind, open heart, and open eyes. When I speak, a lot of times in outside community, I said, what, I'm just trying to get it right here, that you hear through your ears, you process it through your mind. When it becomes your reality, where does it land? In your heart. Those are the things that become your reality. Wouldn't be just mine. That I think those are the important things that you'll carry. You'll carry them to the day you pass. those are the things that you'll teach your family, your friends, whoever will listen on your podcast. I think there's one thing that could open up a lot of eyes, and that would be some spiritual people coming on board your show to talk about how we do things in Salish territory. We in my community, we coined a phrase: we look after our people from the womb to the tomb. And it is pretty true. It is pretty true. We've got over 4,000 people, and you can't physically pay for everything that everybody needs, but by and large, the people of my community aren't in any great need. And that a lot of that comes from the spirituality that's been passed down amongst our people. My late mother was a devout Catholic, and a couple of my older siblings, they followed that path. I never did. I didn't believe in all that stuff. One God. God's everywhere. But I just found it strange. That this
a little rigid.
Ultimate person, and the religion that he fronted, would end up being executioners in different countries. The Holy Roman Wars. Oh my God, a lot of people died in those things, And I don't know. I've never heard of any First Nations goddess saying you got to go in there and kill those people.
You make a really interesting point though. Like, as you say, something happened to me where sort of I caught a glimpse, and one of the main things that hit me up front was that everything was okay. I did no longer some kind of vague sense of need or something. It just lifted, and I realized that everything was fine, and it's lasted. It's like it's an enduring thing, and it is the spirituality. It's like once that entered my life, it was almost as if all my seeming problems were solved. They sort of all disappeared.
That's great. That's great. Well, with another $2.3 million, we'll fix all the problems. Hey, Andy.
So you're raising money for this, listeners. Anybody? This is a beautiful project. You can find. Is it back to what's the website again, Andy? Yep. I think you're muted.
Now it's a lip reading thing. Backtothefire.net.
Backtothefire.net. Listeners, check it out. Both to see when it comes out, but also if you're interested in supporting it. It's a beautiful project, and the story is just great. I love the fact that you guys found each other. Another good thing that came out of quarantine, right? I think Andy, you made the point, like we do have our traumas, but we want to focus on the beauty of it all. And I think a lot of great things happened during the downtime. Connections were made and stuff. So it's another great project that came out of quarantine. And we wish you all the luck. And we'll see you on the red carpet at is it the Oscars? Gibby, what are you gunning for here? You want best actor or
anything?
Anything that involves
stay open.
The Razzie might get the Razzie.
The Razzie.
Open to possibility.
Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey. Thank you, Duff. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
What a sweet soul.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Andy, I'm so envious. Right? Figured out a way to mix his career and learning and ancient wisdom all into one package.
Yeah, it's so good. I think it's so timely. Yeah, I think the world needs it. I need it. I can only speak for myself.
And what a wild connection to make, right? Like people that you wouldn't normally think would ever even meet or spend time together.
Right.
They made a quarantine connection, and here we are, back to the fire, in search of lost values that could change our world. It's a great name too.
Yep.
We wish them all the luck. Not that they need it. All right, so I've got one
Right.
for you that's very much on point here.
Okay.
So in David Lynch's short film masterpiece, What Did Jack Do? The character Jack at one point says, I'm not going to ruin anything about it, but Jack says, this thing is bigger than both of us. And I was reading something this morning that gave me an inkling into one way to come at a spiritual, a more expansive spiritual view than any of us might have at any particular point in time. And it's basically to realize that this thing is bigger than both of us, right? So the yogis have this term in Sanskrit. It's called akasa, and it means ether or space or sky, but essentially ether. And the reason it's ether is different than space, like empty space, is that it's considered the context for all this. And to sort of clarify, I'll just read it now. This quote, it's from Shankaracharya, one of the great philosophers of human history. He says, Akasa is not a non-entity, not a mere negative state of being unoccupied, right? It's not just empty space.
Right.
It is, on the other hand, a diffused principle affording space for creatures to exist and move.
So sort of the platform for existence, is that?
Yeah. So
okay.
instead of looking out and seeing emptiness, right? You can look out and see the container for all of this. And if you do that, and if you sort of remind yourself of that, you realize, or at least for me, I feel this way. It's like it contextualizes your existence in a much more profound way than just thinking that you're wandering out there in sort of an open-ended scenario. It's not open-ended. It is you are exist in a diffused principle affording space for yourself to exist and move. That is akasa. So
it's bigger than both of us.
It's bigger than both of us. So, seeing as this was a podcast of all sorts of firsts, right? We had our first First Nations guest. We had our first, and it was his first podcast. It's our first four-way interview. And I figured, why not wrap it all up with another first? I am going to read the first ever sonnet I have ever read out loud to close this episode. It might be the first time. It's the first time I've ever read a sonnet out loud.
Okay.
And it's by our friend Sri Aurobindo, another great source of wisdom, the patron saint of how to tickle yourself. And we get so wrapped up and to the point of that what Chief Gibby and Andy are doing. We all get so wrapped up in our own business that it's hard not to forget that this has all happened before, right? The wisdom of the ages is real, right? Whatever you've been through, a million other people have been through it. And you want to try to remember that. So this is Sri Aurobindo's sonnet. It's called The Universal Incarnation. There is a wisdom like a brooding sun, a bliss in the heart's crypt grown fiery white, the heart of a world in which all hearts are one, a silence on the mountains of delight, a calm that cradles fate upon its knees, A wide compassion leans to embrace Earth's pain. A witness dwells within our secrecies, the incarnate Godhead in the body of man. Our mind is a glimmering curtain of that ray, our strength a parody of the immortal's power, our joy a dreamer on the eternal's way, hunting the unseizable beauty of an hour. Only on the heart's veiled door, the word of flame, is written the secret and tremendous name.
Very nice stuff.
Chief Gibby was talking about that. It's all written on the heart.
It's the truth.
There you go. There's my first sonnet, the universal incarnation. If you want more of that, listeners,
just let us know. Just let us know.
Right? We can't get through all the mail.
Right.
Well, we try to, but it's hard because there's so much.
Right.
But if you want more sonnets, let us know. And in any case, we will try to keep doing what we're doing here for you. We'll be back next week.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to How to Tickle Yourself with your host, Duff McDonald, and me, Joey of Rockledge. You can help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. You can talk to us and see what else is happening on Instagram and Facebook at How to Tickle Yourself. This program was recorded in Studio B of the historic Rockledge Recording Studio. Right Here, Right Now, our original 16-part theme music, was written and recorded by the legendary Paul Reddick and Kyle Ferguson of the Sidemen, with Steve Mariner on bass and drums and in the mixing room. This podcast is produced and distributed by Storic Media. Our editor is Oscar Desiderio. Our producers are Kristen Verbitsky and Chuck Labella. For more information, visit storicmedia.com. That's STORIC media.com.